Hi everybody, I'm Greg Fishel. Welcome to bonus weather video number 2 for this week. And this is going to be, I guess what you'd call like an op-ed piece or a commentary or something like that. I do have some really serious concerns about what's going on in the way weather information is communicated to the general public, and I wanted to share those with you today. Some of you have already heard this a number of times, at least some of it. I'm going to present it in a slightly more detailed manner today. So over the last couple of days, I have seen things like this. Let me just click on the monitor here so I can get that picture to come up. There we go. Monster blizzard, huge update. And you can see the map there showing grandiose amounts of snow across North Carolina. Get ready, major blizzard. Well, everything I looked at today doesn't point in that direction. And if these people were looking at ensembles, they would have known not to be this aggressive. And this is, if there was ever an example of clickbait, this is it. And it works. It does. I hate to admit it, but it does work. All you have to do is look at the number of subscribers that some of these folks out there have by putting these kind of headlines up there. And there's an awful lot of gullible people out there that, think this is really great, and they don't seem to care when it doesn't happen, which is the case the majority of times. And then the next big headline that comes out, they're all excited again, okay? So this is going on in social media. The other thing that concerns me about television stations is that they continue to show deterministic models instead of ensembles. And this is 20th century science, my friends. The ensembles have been around for 25 years now. And just to recap the advantage of that, the most important thing in any model forecast, whether it's the weather or anything else, is the starting point, the initial conditions, okay? If you don't get that right, if you don't get the starting point right, you're out of luck, especially as you go down the road. And so when the ensembles change the initial conditions just slightly to 50 different extents, in a sense what we're doing is covering the possibility of an analysis that's better than the one that we currently have, okay? And it also tells us how sensitive the atmosphere is to those small changes. If the solutions are varying widely or diverging wildly out in time, that tells us that, hey, a small error at the beginning could make a big difference in the outcome down the road, okay? And in that case, you would be hopefully honest with the public and say, hey, I have low confidence in this forecast. If all the solutions are similar out in time, then that gives you higher confidence in the forecast. But, this is a major technological advancement to have the computing power to run 51 versions of a given model and not put all your eggs in the basket of one. And yet this is all I see on television stations, is that it's deterministic models and they're way out in time and they show things that are, I guess, exciting, but most of the time they're not true, okay? And this week's a great example. There was all sorts of talk about a major snowstorm in North Carolina the early part of next week. And I shared with you the fact that when I looked at the European ensemble package, I didn't have enough evidence to go for a big snowstorm, and everything today is now trending away from that, okay? I don't mean to pat myself on the back. All I'm doing is making use of 21st century science. It's available to everybody. I'm not paying extra for it, okay? So that is a concern. And the fact that it's succeeding is even more distressing to me because it's bad science, okay? It is, just period, end of discussion. So looking back at my history, and by the way, real quickly, television stations hire what are called consultants. I guess every industry has this. And the consultants do surveys of people and allegedly find out what the public wants, and then we're supposed to respond to that. Well, somebody gave me a phrase years ago, and it said, the phrase was, the public doesn't know what they want until you show it to them. And the translation of that is this, is that supposing somebody is doing a survey with me and they're asking me questions, how do you feel about this, how do you feel about that? I can only respond to those questions based on things I've already seen and know about, okay? But if somebody comes to me with a brand new idea and they show conclusively the advantages of that new idea, then I'm going to have a much different response because I've been exposed to something that's superior. Now I know about it, and now I can respond intelligently about it, okay? So to rely on focus groups and surveys, people can only respond to things they already know about. And I have fought the battle on ensembles for years, and basically everybody has just laughed in my face. I used to go to conferences and talk to the various vendors, you know, that, hey, you can really set yourself apart if you develop products relating to this. And they just all looked at me like, nah, Greg, that's not what people want. You know, it just isn't. And so nobody was willing to take the lead and try to make an argument that, that this was an advantage and a better product than what they currently were providing. Two of the things the consultants told me over my time at WRAL that I completely ignored, and all of you proved me right. The first thing was, public doesn't want to be educated. They don't want to know why things are happening. They just want to know if it's going to rain or not. Well, a whole bunch of you came up to me over 37 plus years and said that the reason that you watched was that you learned things about the weather, which empowered you to make better decisions relating to the weather, okay? Maybe not all of you, but a significant number of you told me just that. And then the other thing was, never talk about what you're uncertain of, only talk about things you're sure of. Well, a lot of you came up to me over the years and said, we appreciate your honesty. You know, why pretend to be confident when you're not? We want to know if your confidence level is low or your confidence level is high, okay? So I feel really good about the fact that I ignored them on both of those counts, and all of you, I think, proved me right, or at least the majority of you anyways. So I could not have timed my entrance into the broadcast meteorology field any better than I did, because it was right around 1979 and 1980 the TV stations decided to start hiring degreed meteorologists instead of weather announcers. And so when I got here in 1981, I knew North Carolina State University had a department of meteorology, and so I went over there, and the first person I introduced myself to was Dr. Jerry Watson. And unfortunately, Dr. Watson is no longer with us, but he could not have been more welcoming. Just a really nice man, very knowledgeable man, and he was so excited that finally somebody on television had a degree in meteorology. He was all excited about that. So a little bit later, I was up in Withers Hall, which is where the weather office was, and Jerry and I were talking, and another professor of meteorology walked into the room, and his name was Dave Barber. And he got in there and he took a map and he put it down on the table and he's looking at it. And Jerry looks at Dave and says, hey, you got to meet the new meteorologist. We finally got a guy on TV with a degree. Dave never moved his head, and he simply muttered, is he any good? And I knew I had a challenge on my hand, because it was clear to me that he was probably lumping me into the group of people over the years that were more interested in getting their face recognized and their name recognized, and the science was a distant second priority to all of that. And so I spent a lot of time with Dave, and slowly over time, he recognized the fact that the science was my priority and the TV was second to that. And so he actually left NC State and went into the ministry, and we used to kid him about the fact that he was working on a new model called divine guidance, and that was sort of a running joke for a while. And now I think Dave is working for the National Weather Service up in Alaska, last time I checked. But the more I've aged and so forth, I've thought about the fact that meteorologists in social media and on television are a liaison between the scientific community, the academicians at the universities and the research people, and the general public. Scientists by nature are not the best communicators, and so they rely on people to get their message out and to educate the public about what we're learning and what we're doing with that acquired knowledge. And so I feel a very important responsibility there, and I have told many professors at North Carolina State, I said, look, if you ever hear me say something on TV that is the least bit scientifically inaccurate, don't sit around the water cooler and discuss it amongst yourselves. Call me, text me, email me, whatever the means of communication was at the time, and let me know about it, because that's the last thing in the world that I want to do. And so I developed a nice rapport with that department, and if I ever get back to Raleigh, I hope to reestablish that, because I like being around people that know more than I do. I'm not ashamed of that, okay? Some of these people, like Carrie Emanuel up at MIT and Gary Lakman at NC State, you know, their brain power is on a level I'm not familiar with, you know, and I'm not saying I'm dumb by any stretch, but these guys are just incredible. And I like hanging around people like that, because I always learn things from them and pick up new things from them, and that, you know, that continues to motivate me to just keep getting more knowledgeable with time. Gary Lakman at NC State has written a textbook that is used widely at universities all across the country. He is not your typical ivory tower professor. He wants to relate the theory and the math to real life weather situations. And he's just a really, really nice man, okay? Just about as nice as you'll ever come across. And it's nice to meet people that are smart and nice and outgoing and friendly and all of those things wrapped up in one. And Gary is certainly that. There's no question about it. So I don't know that I'm ever going to win this battle, because it is clear that the clickbait is very successful. You look at the number of followers that these people have compared to me, and it's a pretty big gap. It really is. But one thing my parents taught me early on was to stand up for what you believed in, even if it wasn't popular. And so that's what I'm going to do until I take my last breath on the planet. And I hope that's not too soon. But you know, you know, every once in a while you just have principles that you believe in, and you have to stick with them. So anyways, that's a long-winded commentary about my assessment of the state of meteorology and how it's represented today. And I hope that makes some sense to you. Even if you don't agree with everything, I hope you can at least respect it. So you all take care, folks. Have a great Wednesday evening. Happy New Year, and we'll talk to you soon. See you later.